Hey guys, tonight we're waking up face down in the dirt with the sun blazing in our eyes, denim itching at our neck, and a heavy revolver in our right hand. There's dust in your teeth, bruises blooming somewhere you can't quite feel yet, and a strange hush hanging in the air, like the whole town is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. You're not sure who you are, why you're dressed like a 19th century outlaw, or who all these grim-looking folks with mustaches and twitchy hands are, but one thing's clear. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, comment where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Always curious who's out there with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your cheek presses into warm gravel as consciousness drips back into your skull like syrup from a cracked bottle. The sky is too blue. The air smells like burnt leather, iron, and, oddly, molasses. You blink against the light, raising your head just enough to see your own reflection in a polished brass spittoon. A cowboy hat, a dusty brown duster, holster, boots, gun, you. It feels like slipping into someone else's skin. Tight in the shoulders, alien in the elbows. Your hand is still gripping the revolver, its grip worn smooth from too many fights. It doesn't feel like yours, but your fingers curl around it instinctively. You sit up slowly. Around you, the town stands frozen. Sun-baked wood buildings leaning in like eavesdropping gossipers. A blacksmith's hammer stills mid-swing. A child drops a hoop. 3 men stand under the saloon balcony, hands near their belts, eyes narrow. You are not welcome here. You can taste it. Then someone mutters, "He's back." Oh, good. Someone thinks they know you. A woman gasps and backs into a general store. Doors close, shutters slam. Even the horse tethered near the sheriff's office turns away like it wants plausible deniability. A bell above the saloon door jingles. Out steps a man with a gold star pinned to his vest and a mustache that could apply for statehood. Sheriff, presumably. His boots creak on the porch boards. "You got nerve showing up here again," he says. You have no idea who he is or who he thinks you are. You blink. He blinks back. His hand hovers a little too close to his holster for comfort. You clear your throat. "Remind me, where is here?" That gets a few chuckles from the crowd, nervous ones. But the sheriff doesn't smile. Deadstone, Arizona territory, which, by the way, last officially existed in 1912. You're either in a themed escape room or you've just entered a time and space where history got stuck in sepia mode. Somewhere, a tumbleweed gets the cue and rolls through on schedule. Because, of course it does. You stagger to your feet. Every muscle feels like it was used in a bar fight and then forgotten in a barn overnight. "Look," you say. "This is probably a misunderstanding." Another chuckle, this one sharper. The sheriff shakes his head. "You always were a joker, Holden. That's a name. A real one. Your name? Maybe." You file it away. Sheriff's voice lowers. "You best be on your way before someone decides to finish what you started." You're not sure what you started, but the way people are looking at you like you're a snake that might bite again suggests it wasn't a knitting club. Just then, you hear spurred footsteps behind you. You turn. A kid, maybe 10 years old, walks up holding something out. "Your hat," he says quietly. It's brown, wide-brimmed, with a bullet hole clean through one side. Charming. You take it. He doesn't run away. You don't remember, do you? He whispers. You shake your head. The kid nods solemnly, as if he understands, which is vaguely terrifying. People here, they remember everything. He vanishes around a corner. Everything? Fantastic. Meanwhile, your brain is drawing a blank. You tuck the revolver into its holster. The weight is comforting, in the way a fire extinguisher is comforting when the curtains are already on fire. You wander up the boardwalk past the saloon. No one stops you, but they all stare. You pass a wanted poster nailed to a post. The wind peels the edge just enough to see your own eyes staring back. Holden Kane, wanted for murder, theft, and acts of undue persuasion. Whatever that means, there's a reward. There's always a reward. But this one is crossed out. Someone scribbled "dead only" over the original bounty. You wonder if you wrote that. As you lean in to get a better look, something odd happens. Your reflection in the glass window behind the poster doesn't match your movement. You step left. Reflection steps right. You raise your hand. Reflection stays still. Then, for a flash, it smirks. You blink. It's you again. No smirk, no delay. Okay. So you're hallucinating now? Good. Historically speaking, hallucinations aren't all that rare out here. Frontier folk were exposed to a cocktail of things that could fry your brain. Lead poisoning, mercury in medicine, spoiled alcohol, sunstroke. Heck, they even used opium to treat toothaches. Not that you had a toothache, unless that explained the ringing in your head. Also, historians still argue whether the Wild West was truly as lawless as the movies suggest, or just a romanticized chaos that masked deeper political and economic control. But that's not helpful right now, is it? You continue past the mercantile. Something smells like burnt beans and broken promises. The blacksmith eyes you warily, but doesn't reach for a hammer. Progress. Then you see it, a painted wooden sign, hanging above a squat little building on the edge of town. Hot baths, 15C. You have no coins, no ID, and possibly no real name. But your skin itches under the layers of sweat and mystery, so you walk in. Inside, a sleepy attendant looks up from a deck of cards. You payin' or trading? He asks. Depends what you take. He eyes the revolver. Gun's too hot. Try again. You reach into the coat pocket and find, surprise, a silver pocket watch. Monogrammed HC. You flip it open. Inside the lid, scratched in shaky script, trust no one in Deadstone, not even yourself. You hand him the watch. He shrugs and nods toward a back room. Steam's still warm. Don't drown. You thank him, strip down behind a faded curtain, and sink into the copper tub. The water stings old cuts. Your muscles ache with secrets. You tilt your head back and try to breathe. For a second, the world is still, until you hear a voice from the next room. He's back, and he doesn't remember, just like she said. You freeze. There's more than one person in Deadstone who knows what's going on, but none of them are telling you yet. And outside the bathhouse, the sun keeps rising over a town that seems to hate your guts, while you're still trying to figure out why. You don't rush, which is strange because every instinct in your body is screaming at you to grab the gun and run for the hills, or at least back into the bath and pretend you're just a confused tourist in a very elaborate Western reenactment. But the water's cooling fast, and so is the illusion of safety. You rise from the tub, steam clinging to your skin like the ghosts of a dozen unmade decisions. Your clothes are where you left them, folded with almost military precision on a bench. Whoever you were before today, you knew how to handle yourself, even if the current version of you struggles to find the armholes in your own shirt. As you dress, that voice still echoes in your head, just like she said. Who is she? And what exactly did she say? You step out into the main room. The bathhouse attendant is gone, but there's a faint trail of wet footprints leading to a side door, and the unmistakable smell of gun oil and cigar smoke drifting in from the saloon across the way. Naturally, you follow the smoke. The saloon doors swing with theatrical reluctance as you push through. The room inside is a warm haze of cheap whiskey, old pine, and unspoken grudges. Piano music plays lazily in the corner, not from a player, but a real man with real fingers, and a pair of goggles strapped inexplicably to his forehead. He looks up as you enter, misses a note, and resumes playing without looking at the keys. Everyone glances your way. Nobody smiles. You make your way to the bar, nodding at a woman polishing the glasses with a rag that might once have been white. She squints at you. "Whiskey?" she asks. "Something cheaper," you reply. "Maybe with less ambition." She snorts. "You always were funny." There it is again. Always. Like you've lived 1,000 lives here already. Like this town remembers every move you've made and every person you've crossed. You sip the drink. It burns. Not in the metaphorical way, in the was that kerosene kind of way. Still, it loosens the knots in your shoulders and greases your curiosity. "You said I was always funny," you say. She shrugs. "Last time you were in here, you offered a guy double or nothing in a coin toss with a coin that had 2 heads. That sounds like something I'd do," you admit. "Didn't end well." "Did I lose?" "You won." "Still didn't end well." Your eyes scan the room. The poker table in the back is full, mostly grizzled men with the kinds of faces that look like they've been sandpapered by bad decisions. One of them turns ever so slightly and reveals a long scar running down the side of his neck. He taps his cards. Doesn't smile. Doesn't need to. Then you see him, leaning against the upstairs balcony rail, directly above the bar, is a man in all black. Vest, boots, gloves, hat. Even his skin seems to have a shadowy undertone, like he's allergic to daylight and joy. He's watching you. He lifts a single finger and points, not at you, but at the stairs to the right. Message received. You climb slowly. Every board creaks like it's tattling. At the top, he gestures toward a small side room. You step inside. It's quiet. Just the soft hum of heat on old wood. He enters behind you and closes the door. "You don't remember," he says. It's not a question. You nod. "You shouldn't be here yet." Yet he studies you. Up close, his eyes are impossibly pale. Not creepy, just unsettling. Like looking into fog and seeing something move that shouldn't be there. "You're early," he says. "Or late. Time's fuzzy around here." You fold your arms. "Want to start making sense, partner?" He actually smiles. Just a flicker. "You always were the sarcastic type." That again. He drops a leather pouch onto the table between you. It spills open. 3 brass coins, an iron key, and a photograph. You pick up the photo. It's you, standing with a woman. She's wearing a dark shawl, holding a pocket watch. You think it might be the same one you gave up at the bathhouse. Her expression is unreadable. Yours is almost smug. There's a building in the background with a cracked clock face. The hands are missing. This is from 2 weeks ago, the man says, and also from 2 years from now. You don't respond. Don't try to make sense of it, he adds. It'll just give you a nosebleed and a headache shaped like a horseshoe. You eye the key. Where does that go? He taps the photo. Find the clockmaker's shop. She'll explain. The woman? He nods. Her name is Mora, and she already hates you, naturally. As you pick up the pouch, the room suddenly tilts. Not literally, but the way a thought tilts when you realize it's pointing at something you should have noticed before. Wait, you say. How do you know all this? He tips his hat. Because I've lived it already. And then he vanishes. Okay, not literally vanishes. That would be ridiculous. You blink and realize the door is still open and he's just not there anymore. It's like trying to remember a dream you had last night. Every detail crumbles when you chase it. You descend the stairs, the saloon suddenly quieter. Everyone's pretending they weren't listening. Back on the street, the sun's higher, the heat drier, and the town just a little more suspicious. You head toward the edge of town, where a crooked sign reads, Clockmakers, Repairs, and Fine Tuning. The building leans like it's eavesdropping on its neighbors. The windows cracked, the curtains drawn. You knock. Nothing. You knock again. Eventually, the door creaks open. A woman stands there, tall and narrow, like a tower built out of vinegar and backbone. Her hair is pinned up, eyes sharp, mouth thin as a deadline. You shouldn't be here, she says. Yet, you ask? She sighs and steps aside. Come in, but don't touch anything. Inside, the walls are covered in clocks, ticking, whirring, winding down. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all ticking at slightly different rhythms. The effect is both mesmerizing and incredibly annoying. On the back wall, a larger clock looms. Cracked face, no hands. Just like the photo. You reach into the pouch, pull it out, and hand her the picture. She doesn't look at it. I know what it shows. You place the iron key on the table. Her eyes flick to it, then back to you. Do you remember me? You shake your head. She sighs again. That's worse. Then she moves to a cabinet, opens a drawer, and pulls out a small wooden box. Inside, a single bullet, carved with strange markings. Not symbols, scratches, like it's been trying to write something from inside itself. She hands it to you. This is yours, or it was, or it will be. You're starting to understand why historians still argue whether the frontier was truly lawless or just deeply confusing. You pocket the bullet. Mora stares at you. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. You're not ready. Ready for what? She turns away. Then quietly, for what's already started. Outside, church bells chime once. The sound hangs in the air like a warning, and you realize, for the first time today, that someone's watching you from across the street. Again. You don't turn to face the figure watching from across the street. At least, not immediately. You've learned enough in the past few hours to know that in a place like Deadstone, locking eyes with the wrong person could be taken as a challenge, or worse, a confession. Instead, You pretend to study the warped reflection of the cracked clock in Mora's display window, watching the shadowy silhouette linger in the corner of your eye. Wide-brimmed hat, long coat, still as a gravestone. You finally glance, just a flick of the eyes, and the figure is gone. No footsteps, no breeze, just vanished. You saw him too, Mora says from behind you, and it's not a question. I've seen a lot of things today, you mutter. You always do, she replies. That phrase again. You're beginning to hate it. As you step back into the street, the heat hits you like a freight train. The sun has climbed higher, the shadows shorter, and your shirt clings to your back with the insistence of a bad memory. The town hasn't gotten friendlier since you last walked through it. If anything, the silence is heavier. Someone has chalked something on the saloon wall since your last visit. Kane returns. Blood follows. Kane. Holden Kane. That's the name on the wanted poster. And if Mora's expression was anything to go by, it's not winning you any popularity contests. You need answers. You need clarity. And let's be honest, you really need a nap. But instead of curling up in a trough and sobbing gently into a cactus, you do the next best thing. You head to the sheriff's office. Because why not confront the man who wants you dead before lunch? The office is surprisingly clean. A wood stove in the corner, 2 desks, 1 jail cell, currently empty. The sheriff is seated at one of the desks, pen in hand, writing something in a logbook. He doesn't look up as you enter. I ought to shoot you for crossing the threshold, he says casually. Morning to you, too, you reply, closing the door behind you. He finally looks up. His eyes are tired. Too many sunrises. Too many regrets. You want something? A conversation. You're lucky I'm low on bullets. You sit. Sheriff, I'm not sure I'm the man you think I am. He chuckles darkly. That's the first true thing you've said all day. You wait. He taps the pen against the paper. You know why they hate you, Holden? You shrug. Working on that. He leans back. You came here 2 months ago. No warning, no past. Just appeared. Same hat, same coat, same look in your eye. Déjà vu. You took a job wrangling cattle with Briggs up north. Good pay, rough work. Then one night, the ranch burned down. Briggs dead. 3 men shot. No witnesses. You rode off before dawn. You blink. Why would I come back? Because you always do. That again. That cursed phrase. I don't remember any of that, you admit. He doesn't respond. You lean forward. Do you have the wanted poster? He nods, reaches into a drawer, and slides it across the desk. It's the same one you saw before. A sketch of your face. Holden Kane. Wanted dead or alive. Except here, in the sheriff's personal stash, the bounty isn't crossed out. This version is older, you say. Right. Before folks lost patience. You look closer. The handwriting on the poster, it's yours. Sloppy, sharp, familiar. Did you make this? No, that's impossible. Unless... Sheriff, you say slowly, what do you know about time travel? He raises an eyebrow. You been drinking snake oil? Just asking. He studies you for a moment. Historians still argue whether some of those frontier wanderers were just lost soldiers, con men, or something stranger, he says, as if quoting from memory. That's unexpectedly profound. Did I ever mention someone named Mora? You ask. His face hardens. Don't go bothering her. She's been through enough. I think she knew me. She thought she did. Then she buried a husband and stopped speaking for 6 weeks. You sit back. That's a lot. She said, I'm not ready, you mutter. She's not wrong. You exhale. Okay, you say. Let's assume for a moment that I'm not the same man who caused all this trouble. What would you suggest I do? He eyes you carefully. There's a poker game at the back of the saloon. Big one. Buy-in steep. That's advice? He shrugs. Guy named Jeb plays every week. Used to ride with you, or one of you. Maybe he'll say more after a few hands. You leave the sheriff's office with more questions than answers. But a lead is a lead. And also, you're apparently very good at poker. The saloon is even smokier now. The piano player has taken off his goggles and is using them to reflect sunlight onto a fly buzzing overhead. One way to stay entertained. You approach the table. Seat open? You ask. One man grunts, another nods. You sit. The dealer is a woman with a scar across her lip and eyes like weathered glass. Buy-in's 30, she says. You hesitate, then remember the pouch. Inside, 3 coins, brass, heavy. You slide one forward. That'll do, she says. Cards? You nod. As the game unfolds, something shifts. Muscle memory takes over. Your hands move with confidence you don't feel. Bluffs, raises, a subtle tap of your fingers. They all seem to know you. And you, somehow, know them. The man across from you, Jeb, you assume, is watching you closely. Third hand in, he speaks. You still got the twitch? What twitch? He mimics your left eyebrow rising ever so slightly before you call a bluff. You try not to smile. You really don't remember, do you? No, you say quietly. He leans back, rubbing the stubble on his chin. You saved my life once. Dragged me out of a canyon full of Comanche ghosts. At least, that's what we thought it was. Some say it was just gas vents. Others, not so sure. That sounds dramatic. It was. The dealer flips the river card. You win the hand with a pair of queens. Jeb nods. You're not him. Not exactly. But I look like him. Sound like him. Smell like him. You sniff your sleeve. Fair. He leans in. You should talk to the widow. Which one? The clockmaker. Already did. He looks surprised. She let you in? Didn't throw anything. That's practically affection. The next hand begins, and you play without thinking. You're trying to piece together the puzzle. Your face. This name. The fractured timeline that everyone in town seems to know, but no one will explain. Halfway through the hand, Jeb speaks again. You remember the story of the Redstone Gang? It sounds familiar. Back in 1881, they hit a train carrying Union gold. Disappeared into the desert, never seen again. Urban legend, or truth twisted by time. People still find redstone bullets out there. Only 4 ever made, carved with names. You frown. You remember the bullet Mora gave you? Let me guess. One of those names was mine. He nods. Cain? You were one of them. Cain was a biblical murderer. Jeb chuckles. Fits, don't it? You glance around the room. Everyone seems far too invested in their own conversations. But something in the air shifts, like gravity, just tilted a bit to the left. You stand. Jeb doesn't stop you, just says one last thing. Whatever's happening, it's not the first time, and it won't be the last. You leave the table, your pockets lighter, your brain heavier. Outside, the sun is finally dipping toward the horizon. Shadows lengthen. The town seems to exhale. And across the street, there's a new poster tacked to the wall. Wanted, Holden Kane, dead only, But it's not a sketch anymore. It's a photograph, and it was taken today. You stare at the photograph, not moving, not blinking, not breathing maybe. It's you, unmistakably. The creased expression, the faint scar above your right eyebrow, the squint like you've just realized the saloon ran out of whiskey. It's not an old photo either. The lighting's exactly how the street looks right now. Same shadows, same angle of the sun. Someone took this picture today, and someone printed it fast enough to get it up on the wall before you even finished your poker hand. It's not possible. But then again, the town itself isn't behaving like it cares much for the laws of reality. You reach out to touch it, half expecting it to ripple like water. It doesn't. The paper is warm from the sun, tacked firmly into splintered wood, real, tangible, and deeply unsettling. You scan the nearby rooftops. If someone's watching you, they're good at it. No glint of lenses, no movement, just the quiet hush of a town that has officially decided you're not part of the plan. You hear boots behind you, slow, deliberate. You turn. It's her, the woman from the photo Maura gave you. She's dressed differently now, wearing black from throat to toe, her shawl caught in the breeze like smoke. But her eyes are the same, deep, steady, with the expression of someone who's lived too long and doesn't trust time anymore. She doesn't say your name. She doesn't have to. Dinner's in 20 minutes, she says, then walks away without waiting for your answer. You could choose to ignore her. You could walk straight out of town, leave the mystery behind, and spend your days selling snake oil in a city that doesn't care who you are. But curiosity is a tricky beast, and right now, it's winning. You follow her. She leads you past the general store, across a narrow alley where stray cats hiss at your boots, and into a house that looks older than the town itself. Shutters drawn, windows warped, front door painted a deep red that time hasn't managed to fade. Inside, it's cool. The air smells like dry herbs and old tobacco. The walls are lined with shelves, books, trinkets, a few broken pocket watches. A single oil lamp burns on the table, casting slow-moving shadows. She gestures for you to sit. You do? She pours you tea. You're half expecting poison, but you drink anyway. I'm not here to hurt you, she says. I've heard that before. No, she replies. You've said it before. That shuts you up. She sits across from you, hands folded, watching you like a scholar studying a rare specimen. You really don't remember me? No, you say softly. But I remember your face. That earns you a nod, a small one. Progress. My name is Eliza, she says. Eliza Kane. You blink. Kane. Wife, you ask? Widow, of course. She watches your face as the word sinks in. Do you remember anything? She asks. You shake your head. Fragments. Names. A place here or there. It's like someone emptied out my brain and just left the echo. She takes a long sip of tea. That's how it always starts. You frown. Always? She stands, crosses the room, and pulls open a drawer in a side cabinet. She returns with a thin wooden box. Inside are 4 photographs. All of them. You. Different clothes. Slightly different expressions. But definitely you. Somehow taken in different seasons, different years. One of them has you smiling, a rare thing. Another shows you with a black eye. One is singed at the edges. How? You begin. You come back, she says, Every so often, always like this, same face, same name. Sometimes you remember things, sometimes not. You're silent. First time you showed up was 12 years ago, she continues. Said you were looking for someone who stole something from you. And you never found it, but you stayed. You swallow. Did we love each other? She smiles. It's not kind. For about 6 months, then you robbed a bank and vanished. That doesn't sound like love. It wasn't. You shift in your seat. Do you think I'm the same man? She tilts her head. That depends on how you define same. You've got the same heart, same hands. But your mind? That's a revolving door. You run a hand through your hair. How does that make sense? It doesn't, she replies. But sense isn't something we specialize in around here. You glance at the photographs again. Who took those? I did. Each time you came back, I documented you, just in case it mattered later. You can't help but admire the practicality. Tell me, she says, do you remember the sundial mine? No. Then you will. She hands you a small map, drawn on yellowing paper. It shows the outline of Deadstone, the nearby hills, and a place marked with a black X, Sundial Mine. You're going to want to go there, she says. Soon. Something always draws you there eventually. And what will I find? She stands again. That's the question, isn't it? Later that evening, as the sky bleeds into violet and the stars peek out like shy ghosts, you step back into the street with the map tucked in your coat. Your feet carry you without much argument, down toward the edge of town, past the chapel, past the old stable, to a part of Deadstone you haven't seen yet. Here, the air feels heavier, the houses are darker, the street lamps don't light properly. It's quieter, too, like the town itself is reluctant to remember what's buried here. You pass a boarded-up storefront labeled S. Langley Photography. Something about it pulls you. You try the door. It creaks open. Inside, dust motes drift like tiny constellations. A broken tripod leans against the wall. There's an overturned chair, a cabinet with smashed glass, and a dark room in the back. Still red lit after all these years, and in the corner, a pile of photographs. All of them of you. Different again. You in other towns, other outfits. You on a horse. You being dragged by 2 lawmen. You sitting alone, staring into the distance like you're watching your own future go up in smoke. The last photo in the pile is blank. Not just undeveloped, blank. Pure white. You stare at it. And slowly, your own face begins to appear on the surface. Now, in real time, as if the moment is burning itself into history without your permission. You drop the photo and step back. Behind you, the dark room door creaks open on its own. No wind, just an invitation. You don't take it. You leave the studio in a hurry, the stars overhead blinking like they've seen this all before. And as you return to your room at the bathhouse, the only one apparently unclaimed, you glance back just once. Someone is in the photo shop window, watching, always watching. You don't sleep much that night, not with that photograph burned into your memory, the one that developed itself, your face blooming like a stain on the past. You close your eyes, and it's there again, but this time the eyes in the image move, just slightly, just enough to make you sit bolt upright in the creaky bathhouse bed, sweating like you ran a mile through the Mojave. Morning comes slow, not with sunlight, but with a choking desert fog that settles over Deadstone like a heavy curtain. You pull on your boots, tuck the map Eliza gave you back into your coat, and head down the main road, half expecting the town to vanish in the mist behind you. But Deadstone is still there. Barely. The people aren't out yet. Doors stay shut. The smell of bacon and ash lingers faintly in the air, but the saloon's closed and the shops are locked. You walk alone until a sign catches your eye. Midnight Rose. Cards, spirits, and favors you can't return. A backroom gambling hall, tucked behind the butcher's, where the meat doesn't smell quite right, and the flies buzz like they know something you don't. You hesitate. Then you push the door open. It's darker inside than it should be. No windows, just oil lamps, each flame standing still like it's holding its breath. There's a table in the center. 5 men sit around it. The man at the head doesn't look up when you enter. He's wearing black, a suit cut too sharp for this dusty place, wide-brimmed hat, pale fingers that move like they're playing piano, even when they're still. His eyes are hidden behind green-tinted glasses, and you'd bet your left boot he sees everything through them, including the shape of your soul. "Eliza sent you," he says without turning his head. You don't answer. He chuckles. "Sit," he says, "or don't." But the deck's already been cut. You sit. One of the men to your left nods at you politely. He looks familiar, like someone who used to sell apples and now sells trouble. Another on your right has a scar that wraps around his throat like a red scarf. Nobody's talking, just breathing and watching. The man in black begins to deal. The cards feel heavier than paper, old, slick with sweat from hands long gone. He speaks again. "You ever wonder why you always end up in this town?" You glance up. "You think I always end up here?" "Oh, not just you," he says, smiling thinly. "People like you, people who carry unfinished business in their bones. The West attracts them. Deadstone keeps them. You eye your hand. A 10, a queen, and a joker. You didn't think jokers were even in the deck. "Is this poker?" you ask. He shrugs. "Of a kind. You're not sure what game you're playing, but when he puts his own hand on the table, it's 3 photographs. All of you. The other players nod, like that makes perfect sense. "Ante," he says. You frown. "I didn't bring money." "You brought time," he replies. "That's more valuable anyway." You slide the map onto the table, the one Eliza gave you. The man in black smiles. He lays down a 4th photo. It's not you. It's a boy, maybe 12. He's holding a toy revolver, pointing it straight at the lens with a grin that doesn't reach his eyes. "Who's that?" you ask. The man leans forward. "Someone you failed." The table goes quiet. You glance at the other players. They don't react, don't blink, don't breathe, maybe. "Is this a dream?" you ask. He smiles again, but it's slower this time, like a snake remembering how to unhinge its jaw. This is memory, just not yours. Yet, you don't win the hand. The man in black takes the map, folds it, tucks it into his coat. "I'll keep this safe," he says. You stand. The air feels thicker now. The lamps flicker like they're laughing. "Come see me again," he calls as you leave, "before you remember too much, or not enough." Back outside, the fog is thinning. The town returns, buildings regaining their edges, the sound of boots on wood, and the distant whinny of a horse no one ever rides. You walk to the clock tower. Eliza's house is empty, but on her table another map waits. This one is older, the lines faded. A different trail is marked in red, and at the bottom is a note written in that same steady hand. If he took the first one, Don't let him take this one. No signature, just a black dot where the sundial mine should be. You fold the new map and pocket it. You leave town before noon, slipping past a preacher polishing a revolver, past children drawing nooses in the dirt with sticks, and past the post office where the same wanted poster, your face, is now burned at the edges, like someone tried to remove it with fire, but couldn't quite finish the job. The road out of Deadstone leads west. You ride a borrowed horse, one that doesn't seem to like you but listens when you whisper to it. Its name is Paint, according to the brand on its saddle, and it's got one blue eye and one brown, like it's seeing two versions of reality and hasn't picked a side. As the town disappears behind you, the land changes. The trees grow sparse, the sun turns mean, and the wind picks up a low whistle, like it's trying to warn you in a language you almost understand. The road ends in front of a canyon. Beyond it, sundial mine. You feel it before you see it, a hum in your chest, like some invisible string is pulling you forward. The entrance is blocked by wood slats and a heavy lock, but someone's already broken it open. The boards are split. The padlock is on the ground, twisted like taffy. You step inside. It smells like time, like rust and regret. Inside, you find markings on the walls, tallies, initials, drawings of eyes. You find an old lantern, still warm, and a spade. You dig without knowing why. 6 feet down, you find a box. Inside the box, a revolver, ornate, ivory grip. Your initials carved into the side. You don't remember owning it, but your hand closes around it like it was made for you. Then the ground beneath your feet shudders. Not a cave-in. A memory you're somewhere else. Briefly, a room filled with smoke, a child crying, the sound of a gunshot, and the weight of this exact revolver in your hand. You blink, back in the mine. The revolver feels heavier now. You holster it. You leave the box behind. As you exit the mine, the sun is low. On the ridge above you, 5 riders sit on horseback, watching. You can't see their faces, but you know, somehow, that they've been waiting a long time. You climb onto Paint, your new revolver heavy at your side. The road back to Deadstone stretches in front of you like a decision. And you ride. The road back to Deadstone isn't the same as the one you left on, even though it follows the same dust-choked path. Something in you has shifted, not just because of the revolver now holstered at your side, although, let's be honest, that would change anyone's posture, but because your brain has started playing its own highlight reel. Bits of memory, fractured, warped, like someone shuffled the deck of your past and dealt the cards upside down. You remember laughter, a woman's voice, a man calling your name in anger, a train whistle, and always the weight of something in your hand. A weapon, a responsibility, maybe the same thing. You don't sleep that night. You set up camp in a dry riverbed, the stars above sharp enough to cut. You watch them move slowly across the sky, and in your haze of exhaustion, you start to imagine they're spelling something out. But it's not in any language, you know. By dawn, you're back in Deadstone. The town is louder than usual. There's a wedding happening, or maybe a funeral. Hard to tell, honestly, since both involve the same preacher, the same dusty church, and mostly the same expressions on people's faces. But no one looks directly at you. It's not fear, it's recognition. The kind of look people give a fire, not because it's beautiful, but because it's dangerous and might spread if you're not careful. You make your way to the old stables behind the general store, not to rent another horse. You already have Paint, who now follows you like a dog with trust issues. But because of the building behind it, the outpost, it used to be a telegraph station. Now it's boarded up and filled with crates. But you've been here before. You break the lock with the butt of your revolver just to remind it who's boss, and push inside. The place smells like dried sage and rat dreams. Dust coats everything, but in the far corner, something gleams. A small metal box. You pry it open. Inside, a faded leather journal. Its cover is cracked, its pages stained, and your initials, those same ones etched on the revolver, are burned into the front in shaky handwriting. You flip it open. The first few pages are notes, some in your handwriting, others not. And then, buried the spurs behind Bighorn Rock. Too much heat in town. We'll come back when the dust settles. You pause. Spurs? You turn the page. There's a sketch. Not great quality, but you recognize the rock immediately. A massive stone formation north of town, shaped like a bison mid-charge. You've seen it before. Maybe even named it. Maybe even died near it. Paint doesn't argue when you mount up again, just snorts like he knew this was coming, and he's frankly disappointed you didn't figure it out sooner. The ride to Bighorn Rock takes a few hours. The sun is cruel. The wind tries to peel your skin off. You chew on some old jerky that tastes suspiciously like leather, dipped in regret, and finally reach the place just as the sky begins to melt into a golden pink. You dismount, dig where the journal suggests. 2 feet down, something solid, a metal tin. You pry it open. Spurs, silver, engraved, your name again. Underneath them, a letter, folded tight, almost brittle. You unfold it carefully. If you're reading this, you've already forgotten again. Good. That means they didn't kill you this time. But you need to remember, none of this is real unless you make it real. The town changes, faces change, but the deal never does. Don't trust the man in black. And for the love of everything, don't play a second hand. It's unsigned. But the handwriting is yours. Definitely yours. You stare at it for a long time, until the wind carries the scent of something familiar. Gun oil, cheap tobacco. You spin. Someone's standing nearby. A woman, red coat, wide-brimmed hat. She raises a hand in greeting. Doesn't speak. You blink. She's gone. Not the first time that's happened today. Probably won't be the last. You tuck the spurs and the letter into your saddlebag. Then, for reasons you can't explain, you climb to the top of Bighorn Rock. From there, you can see Deadstone, tiny, faint, like it's pretending to be innocent from a distance. But you also see something else. Smoke, not from chimneys, not from campfires, from the edge of the desert. A plume, rising slow. You squint. There's a building out there, one you don't remember. A church? A barn? No, a station. You dig into the journal again. Near the back, scribbled between 2 old grocery lists, a short phrase stands alone. Freight Station 17, where the stories bleed through. You don't know what that means, but it sounds important enough to investigate. You ride again. The trail leads through cracked earth and old bones. Literally. You pass what looks like a buffalo skeleton wearing a prospector's hat. You try not to question it. By the time you reach the station, the sun is gone and the stars are back. This time, they don't seem to be spelling anything. The station is abandoned, half collapsed, but there's a lantern glowing inside. You enter quietly. The air is heavy. Old ticket stubs litter the ground. A rusted timetable hangs on the wall, all destinations scratched out except one. Return, no fare required. The lantern flickers. A figure sits on the bench. You recognize him. The man from the poker table. Only now he's older, or maybe just more tired. "I told you not to play again," he says. "You don't remember playing again. You played when you read the letter," he says, as if you said that out loud. You frown. "This is a loop, isn't it?" you ask. He nods slowly. "Not for everyone. Just for those who owe too much to forget." You sit across from him. He pulls something from his coat, the original map. He hands it back to you. "You'll need this," he says, "for the next version." You glance around. "Where does the train go?" "Back to the beginning," he says, "or forward to the truth. Depends on whether you're still lying to yourself." He stands, walks outside. You follow. The tracks stretch forever. No train in sight, but you hear the whistle somewhere. Then, a single sentence from him before he disappears into the dark. Historians still argue whether this town ever existed. And just like that, you're alone again. Except you're not. Paint nudges your shoulder, impatient. You mount up and ride toward the place you said you'd never go again. Because this time, maybe, you're ready to know. You ride through the desert with the weight of that journal pressing against your side, the spurs jangling softly in the saddlebag like a metronome for your thoughts. Every hoofbeat brings a new question and no answers, just the ghost of that man's voice. Back to the beginning or forward to the truth. You don't remember choosing the truth. But here you are. The trail gets narrow as you head west. The land curls inward, craggy rocks jutting like broken teeth. There are no birds, no signs, no convenient "you are here" maps. Just the wind, some dry scrub, and the unnerving sense that you're being watched by something older than fences. The journal mentions the ghost town only once. Freight Station 17 was just the edge. Past that, the town that vanished. Nobody knows why. Nobody stuck around to ask. You reach it just before sundown. A collection of leaning wooden buildings, sun-bleached and sagging under their own history. Half a dozen houses, a tiny church, a blacksmith's forge collapsed in on itself, and a faded sign creaking above a saloon door that simply says, "Home." You're not sure whether to laugh or check for traps. You tie paint near a trough that hasn't seen water since the Monroe administration and step onto the porch. The floorboards moan. The door swings open with zero effort, almost like it wanted you here. Inside the saloon, dust motes float like lazy spirits in the amber light, slipping through shattered shutters. Empty tables, cards scattered on the floor, a broken bottle frozen in time halfway through a spill from a century ago. But on the far wall, a painting. It's of a woman, red coat, wide-brimmed hat. You've seen her before, twice now. Only this time, the painting has a nameplate. Lila Quaid, proprietor, 1871. You run your fingers across the brass, then the frame. The wood is warm. Too warm. The air shifts behind you. Footsteps, bare, careful. You don't turn around, not right away. You just say, "Lila," a soft laugh. "You remember me then?" she says. You do, but not from dreams or ghosts, from something buried deeper, past logic, past timelines, past the rules of whatever this place is. I remember the way you lied, she says, stepping into view, and the way you left. I don't even know who I am, you say. She studies your face. Exactly, she says. That's how I knew you were really back. Lila walks to the bar, pours 2 glasses of something that might once have been whiskey. She slides one your way. Most people who come here are dead, she says, or dreaming. You sip it. It tastes like memory loss and cinnamon. Which am I, you ask. She shrugs. You're you, until you're not. Helpful. You sit in silence a while. The piano in the corner plays one dusty note when the wind sneaks through. Lila finally says, You should see the graveyard, of course, because nothing says restful sleep like a graveyard tour at golden hour. But you follow her. Behind the church is a hill, and behind that, rows of tombstones, all hand-carved, tilted like drunk teeth. There must be 50 of them, a few marked, many blank. You stop cold. One of them bears your name. Not just your name, your birth date, your face, etched into the stone with startling accuracy beneath the words, The man who forgot, may he never return. Lila doesn't say anything. Neither do you, because your throat has closed up, and your hands are shaking in a way that doesn't feel metaphorical anymore. But I did return, you whisper. She nods. And now you've got to decide whether to fix it or finish it. You look at the grave again. It says I died in 1887. She sighs. Some people believe time is a line. Others think it's a lasso. You manage a shaky joke, like a cowboy's lasso. She gives you a sad smile. Or a noose. You leave the graveyard in silence. That night, you sleep in one of the abandoned houses. The walls whisper when the wind hits them, but you find an old blanket and a pillow that doesn't bite. You dream. This time, it's clearer. You're at the blacksmith's forge, watching someone hammer a gun barrel into a new shape. You hear your name being called, the man in black again, dealing cards in an empty room. Then the sound of a train, not arriving, derailing. You wake up covered in sweat. You dress quickly and leave the house just as the sun breaks the horizon. Lila's gone. The saloon is empty again, the painting gone. Only the brass nameplate remains, lying on the floor. You pocket it. You ride back toward Deadstone with more questions than answers. But one thing is different. This time, you're starting to remember on your own. The train wreck, the duel, the name Quaid, and then something else. A name scribbled on a building you passed earlier. Without thinking, you loop back. The building is a schoolhouse, and painted on the door in chipped red paint, property of Pinkerton Intelligence Division. That's not normal. You step inside. The desks are overturned. The walls are covered in maps of the territory, some of which haven't existed in over 100 years. Pinned to a corkboard in the back, a single yellowing document. Operation Dust Valley, target profile, subject Ternighting, alias Quaid. That's your last name, not hers. Yours. Your brain does something weird, like a hiccup, but for identity. You stagger outside, suddenly aware that the world around you feels thinner now, like paper or set dressing. You mount paint again, head low, pulse high. As you leave the ghost town behind, you whisper something to the wind. I'm not just a visitor here, am I? The wind doesn't answer. But far behind you, somewhere in the ghost town, a piano plays 3 quiet notes, major key, and then silence. You don't get far from the ghost town before you see the plume of smoke. Not the lazy kind from a chimney or cook fire. This one's angry, black and fast, and it's coming from dead stone. You dig your heels into paint's sides, and he takes off like he knows the urgency, too. The trail flies by, a blur of red dust and distant vultures. And you don't stop, even when a sidewinder curls across the path. The desert seems to lean in around you, listening. As you crest the last ridge before town, the scene snaps into view like a punch to the gut. The Deadstone Bank is on fire. People are running, some with buckets, some with sacks, one man with a live chicken. Chaos, basically. But through it all, you hear one phrase repeated in panicked voices. He did it again! You slide off paint mid-gallop and storm into the square. Marshal Dust sees you immediately. His mustache twitches like it's trying to escape his face. "You've got guts coming back here, cowboy," he growls. "I just got here," you shout, trying to be heard over the crackle of flames and arguing townsfolk. "What happened?" He doesn't even blink. "The same thing that happened 5 years ago," he says. "You robbed the bank." You stare at him. "I've been gone for days. Check the dust on my boots." "We found your hat inside," he says flatly. You instinctively reach for your head, still wearing it. The marshal notices too. "Well now, that's peculiar," he says. "Unless you got more than one," someone behind you says, "or unless he can be in 2 places at once." You spin. It's the butcher's boy, holding a half-burned note. "Found near the vault," he says, scrawled with 3 words. "Round 2, Quaid." You take it carefully. The handwriting looks disturbingly familiar. Marshal Dust narrows his eyes. "Tell me the truth, son. Are you working with him, or are you him?" The townspeople begin to circle. You see Mrs. Harper clutching her crucifix, the clockmaker's widow shielding her children. Even the cat from the saloon gives you the side-eye. You raise your hands. "I'm not who you think I am," you say. "Which one of you is saying that?" someone yells. "The good one or the bad one?" You feel it deep in your bones. You've been set up again, and somehow by yourself. Marshal Dust locks you in a cell for your own protection. You sit on the cot, staring at the charred scrap of handwriting. 3 words. Simple, clean, even slanted like yours. But it isn't yours. Not entirely. Historians still argue whether handwriting can be forged so perfectly it fools the original writer. In 1882, a man in Kansas claimed to have been framed by his own handwriting, allegedly copied by his identical twin. Problem was, he didn't have a twin. The case was dismissed, but the legend lingers. You glance at the other bunk in the cell. Empty. For now. "Someone is messing with my name," you say to no one. From the corner, the deputy pipes up. "You ever heard of the Ash Fork heist?" You shake your head. "Same thing," he says. "Bank robbed, gunfire, man gets away. Locals swear he looks like the town's own pastor." "And was it him?" you ask. "Nope. But that didn't stop 'em from hanging him." That's comforting. The next morning, Marshal Dust lets you out, reluctantly. The bank fire burned itself out, and by some miracle, the vault held. No gold missing. So if I robbed it, you say, I was pretty bad at it. He doesn't laugh, but he does say one thing that sticks with you. "There's talk you've done this before, not just here. Tombstone, Bisbee, Carson City. Always the same story. Man rides into town, wears your face, stirs up trouble, disappears. Your stomach turns. A copycat? A double? Or worse, another version of you? You need answers. The journal from the desert feels heavier in your pocket. You flip through it again. A single phrase jumps out now, like it was waiting for your eyes to catch up. He follows the plan. I remember forgetting. That's how he wins. You close it with a snap. You know where you have to go. Not to the mine, not back to the ghost town. You have to find someone who knew you before all this. Someone not just wrapped up in mystery or myth. Someone who remembers your face before it became public property. The Pinkerton file. You recall it from the ghost town schoolhouse. Your name listed under Subject Darwin. But there was a logo, too. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was real, of course. Founded in 1850 by Allan Pinkerton, they were the original private eyes. They guarded Lincoln during the Civil War, chased Jesse James, fought unions, a complex legacy. But not many people know they had a rumored subdivision, never publicly confirmed, codenamed the Mirror Room. Supposedly, this team specialized in identity cases, doubles, impersonators, even shadow agents. Conspiracy, maybe. But it doesn't feel like fiction anymore. You sneak into the old telegraph office while the clerk naps and flip through the message logs. Most are boring. Grain orders, complaints about the mayor's beard, one weirdly detailed request for 47 pounds of cinnamon. But one telegram stands out. 2. Pinkerton Field Agent Quad. Reported sighting confirmed. Dust Valley still active. Recommend immediate retrieval. Send proxy. You feel that chill again? Proxy. Not a person. A placeholder. You. Outside, the town's energy is different now. Suspicious. Guarded. You see fewer children, more rifles. You decide to leave again, quickly, but not before one last stop. The Deadstone Library. It's a single room, more like a book barn than anything. But the elderly librarian gives you a once-over, then leads you to the local archives. You're not the first to come asking about him, she says. About who? You ask. She taps a folder. The man with many names. Inside, newspaper clippings, sketches, and one arrest record dated 1880. The photo shows a man who looks just like you. But the name, L.Q. Dust. Your initials, the marshal's surname. You flip to the witness statement. He said he was running from himself. I believed him. God help me, I did. You leave town with fire in your lungs and storm clouds in your mind. Whoever's behind this, whatever version of you is out there, he's always one step ahead. And now, it looks like he wants to finish the game. But you've got your own plan forming. And this time, the trap won't be for you. It'll be yours. The ride to Sundial Mine is longer than you remembered. Maybe because you're thinking too much. Maybe because it's just that kind of desert. Each mile repeating like a broken record. Sand, brush, heat, sky, sand again. Paint doesn't complain. He's good that way. But your thoughts? They're a whole mess. You keep hearing the phrase, he said he was running from himself. It's lodged in your mind like a cactus thorn. The sky darkens slowly as the sun drags itself west toward the mountains. You crest a ridge just as the wind shifts and catch the scent of old iron. That's when you know you're close. Sundial Mine doesn't look like much at first, just a scar on the land, rimmed with rusty machinery and weather-beaten shacks. But the place hums with a kind of history you can feel under your boots. The kind that's been buried, forgotten, and probably wants to stay that way. You hitch paint under the remains of an old water tower and approach on foot. That's when you hear voices, not just one, several, arguing. You duck behind a rock outcrop and peer down. There, in front of the main shaft, stand two groups of people, 5 on one side, 4 on the other, all armed, all tense. In the center of it all, a rusted sundial leans sideways, broken in half. You make out snippets. Not your land anymore. Grandfather spilled blood for this mine. You think a name gives you rights? Old feud, new heat. You've walked into a powder keg. According to local lore, the sundial mine was discovered in 1837 by two brothers, Elias and Micah Braddock. But after gold was struck, they turned on each other. Micah disappeared mysteriously, and Elias claimed full ownership. Some say Micah's ghost still haunts the mine. Others think Elias buried more than just treasure out here. Fringe researchers claim the mine sits on an earth node, a magnetic hotbed where memory, emotion, and time get strange. That's the kind of thing you'd roll your eyes at in a normal life. But yours stopped being normal the day you woke up in cowboy boots. You're trying to decide whether to sneak around or announce yourself when someone yells, "There, up on the ridge!" Well, decision made. Weapons rise. You do the smart thing. Raise your hands and walk down slow. "Don't shoot," you call. "I'm not with either side." The group on the left, led by a woman in a blue duster, steps forward. She squints at you. "Name?" "Call me Quaid," you say. A murmur ripples through both groups. "You're the one from Dead Stone," someone says. "The robber." "No," says another. "The guy being chased by the robber." You sigh. Both of those things are half true. The woman in blue lowers her rifle slightly. "I'm Lydia Braddock," she says. "This mine belongs to my family." The man leading the other side snorts. "It belonged to my family long before yours dug in." You glance at his jacket. Red fringe, thick gloves, a silver badge-like pin in the shape of a snake. "You're a cross," you say. He nods, eyes you carefully. "And you got no business here, Quaid." "Funny," you say. "Someone pretending to be me robbed a bank 3 days ago. Might have been wearing that same badge." His hand twitches near his hip. You both notice. Lydia holds up a hand. "We didn't come here for a shootout," she says, "but you can feel it in the air. Tension like stretched wire." You speak fast. "There's something under this mine, something people want covered up. I think your feud's just the curtain. That earns a few glares. I've seen the journal," you continue. "The entries talk about a hidden room beneath the shaft. Something only opens at sundown, with the sundial. That gets their attention." Lydia eyes you. "You have the journal?" You nod. She glances at the broken sundial. "You know how to fix it?" You walk over and study the pieces. The gnomon, the part that casts the shadow, is snapped clean, but not shattered. You kneel, line it up, twist it carefully into place. At first, nothing happens. Then the shadow shifts, just slightly, falling on a faint metal plate in the ground. "Here," you say. The cross man steps forward. "My great-grandfather said there were tunnels below, old ones, pre-mine. Said they weren't built by us. Historians still argue," Lydia adds quietly, "whether indigenous miners had advanced tunnel systems or if they found something that was already here. Fringe theories claim some mines tapped into older structures, natural or man-made. A few say certain locations in the West predate recorded settlement entirely. One man, Dr. Elias Reeve theorized in 1901 that American deserts conceal entire epochs of unknown civilization preserved not in stone, but in silence. He was ridiculed, naturally, and vanished 6 months later. You don't believe everything fringe theorists say. But this feels real. You pry open the panel, and beneath it lies a spiral staircase carved into stone. You can feel the cold rise from below. The two sides glance at each other, unsure. I'll go first, you say, but no one follows me with a weapon drawn. A pause, then nods. You descend slowly, the flicker of lanterns catching on wet stone and old wooden supports. The smell hits you halfway down. Metal, damp, and something older. You reach the bottom. It opens into a chamber, and on the far wall, symbols, not words, not quite pictures, more like memory shapes, things you know without knowing why. Circles, jagged lines, what could be an eye or a mirror. Then a name, LQ, carved into the stone. There's a trunk in the corner. Inside, a matching journal, yours, but different. You open it. Pages and pages in your handwriting. But events you haven't lived yet. Future entries. One reads, "If I reach this chamber again, I must not forget. I am the original. He is the echo." But echoes fade last. Another. The braddocks and crosses are blind, but necessary. They keep the key here. Each side holds half. You look back up the stairs. Now you know why they've been fighting. Not for gold. For access. For control. You climb back up and tell them what you found. Partially. Lydia and the crossman exchange a glance. Then, grudgingly, they produce small boxes. Each holds a fragment of something. Curved metal, with etched lines. You fit them together like puzzle pieces. They form a ring. The underside matches a recess in the sundial base. You slot it in. The whole ground shudders. Dust rains from the mine entrance. Machinery groans. From the depths, a low hum begins. You step back. The sundial lights up, not with flame, but a soft blue glow. No one breathes. "What did you do?" Lydia whispers. "Open the way," you say, "to the truth." And just then, you hear a voice from behind you. "'Bout time you caught up." You spin. He's standing at the ridge. Same hat, same boots, same face. Your face, but older, sharper, and grinning. He steps down the ridge like a mirror, slipping out of frame. Every twitch of his fingers, every angle of his jaw, it's yours. Just harder, weathered. The kind of face that smiled before pulling a trigger. "Howdy," he says, like your old friends. "You look good, bit soft, but that's fixable." No one moves. The braddocks and crosses stare, hands twitching near holsters. Lydia steps beside you. "Friend of yours?" You shake your head slowly. "No, or maybe. I think he's me." He grins. "Bingo, took you long enough." Now you're caught in 2 levels of surreal. An underground chamber glowing with strange symbols, and your own doppelganger standing on the ridge, arms crossed like he's judging a reflection. You manage. "Who are you, really?" "I'm Quaid," he says, nodding at the ring in the sundial. "The original. You're the echo." Lydia whispers, "What does that mean?" You don't know how to answer because you don't know. The journal you found in the mine said as much. One is real, the other is the shadow. But it didn't say which. He steps closer. "I came back to finish what we started," he says. "But you've been busy, stirring up ghosts, starting fires you can't put out. I've been trying to figure out what's real. He laughs, but there's no joy in it. Buddy, this town doesn't do real. It does revenge, secrets, and bad whiskey. You watch him closely. His boots leave prints in the sand. He's not a ghost. You were the one in the bank, dressed like me. He nods. Someone had to stir the pot. Get everyone looking the wrong direction while I did the digging. One of the crosses finally finds his voice. Why'd you rob the bank? Quaid shrugs. I didn't want the money. I wanted the map. You blink. What map? He grins. Exactly. According to local history, the Sundial Mine had a second shaft that caved in during the 1880s. Most people think it was an accident caused by bad timbering, but some historians argue it was deliberate, part of a land war between rival companies. Evidence? Scarce. Motive? Plentiful. The Pinkerton Agency investigated, but never filed charges. The cave-in was labeled an unfortunate structural failure. Of course, fringe researchers say it wasn't a mine collapse at all, but a cover-up, a deliberate seal on something older than any gold vein, something deeper. Where's the map now, you ask? Quaid taps his temple. Up here, but you already know most of it. That's when the humming returns. Stronger now. The sundial begins to rotate, slowly, grinding against the earth like a great wheel turning. Everyone backs away. The ring in its base glows faintly, casting strange shadows across the dust. I think it's starting, Lydia murmurs. You think what's starting? Someone from the cross side demands. But they don't get an answer, because the sundial suddenly snaps into place, and a beam of light shoots from its center down into the shaft. Not fire, not heat, just light, pure and cold. And when you look down, you see stairs where there were none before, new, smooth, leading deeper. Quaid tilts his head. I didn't get that far last time. You look at him. What's down there? He gives a shrug. History, or a lie too big to unlearn. Lydia whispers, I'm going. You look around. 4 others nod, including one of the crosses. Quaid gives a mock bow. Shall we? The descent is quiet. No one speaks. The air cools as you move deeper, past old stone, past layers of earth that haven't seen light in centuries. And then you reach it, a chamber, bigger than the last. But this one, it's not carved by human hands. The walls are smooth, curved, almost metallic. Symbols, like the ones above, line the edges, softly glowing. In the center, a pedestal. On it, a device, small, clock-like, and beside it, another journal. You reach out slowly. The others don't stop you. Inside the journal, the writing is unmistakably yours. And not just similar, identical. Handwriting, phrasing, even the jokes. You read aloud. The chamber responds to belief. The more people understand it, the more it opens. The pedestal unlocks time, not for travel, but for memory. Echoes become real here. Your voice cracks. Quaid leans beside you. This is where I came the first time, back when I thought I was saving something. Maybe I was just delaying it. You flip a few more pages, then stop, because one page says, don't trust him, and the name beneath it, yours. Only it's been scratched out, rewritten over and over. Yours, his, yours again. What is this place? Lydia whispers. Some historians, you say slowly, think the American West swallowed ancient knowledge. Some believe lost tribes had access to memory archives, living libraries. Others say it's all myth. Quaid scoffs. Historians argue a lot. Most of them haven't even seen the inside of a mine. But they might be right, you mutter. This is a library, just not for books. You touch the pedestal, nothing happens. Quaid touches it too. It lights up. Images flicker in the air. People, towns, gun smoke, laughter, then war, then flame, then your face. Twice. Two Quaids standing together, then one walks away. The images vanish. Silence. Someone behind you says, "We're not supposed to be here." They're probably right. You step back. Quaid looks different now, less smug, more tired. "I'm gonna stay down here a while," he says. You meet his eyes. "I don't think you're me." He nods. "You might be right. I might be the echo. But I don't think I'm the original either," you add. You both look at the device. "What if we're just two ends of the same loop?" He shrugs. "Then maybe it's time to cut it." Outside, the sun is setting. The others file up the stairs quietly. No one talks. They've seen too much, or maybe not enough. You're the last to leave. Quaid stays below, and as you climb into the dusk, the sundial clicks once more, then goes still. At the top, you find someone waiting. A man in a bowler hat, clean coat, badge under his lapel. "Pinkerton. I was told I'd find Quaid here," he says. You squint. "Which one?" He smirks. "Doesn't matter. Just need one of you." He hands you a file. Inside, surveillance photos, old documents, and a report with one name on it. Yours. At the top it says, subject, experimental, temporal agent, 47B. Below, mission incomplete, identity destabilized. You look up. But the agent is already walking away. You carry that file in both hands as you walk, like it might explode if you move too fast. The words inside still burn behind your eyes. Experimental temporal agent. Identity destabilized. You don't know what that means exactly. Not yet. But it confirms something you've been suspecting since the first second you opened your eyes in this town. You are not just some gunslinger. You're a story someone tried to rewrite. The stars are out when you and Lydia make it back to town. The wind has cooled, sweeping the dirt streets with little swirling ghosts of sand. A few lamps burn low in shop windows, but mostly the town sleeps, or pretends to. You're still holding the file when she nudges you. "We need help understanding this." "Help?" you say, thumbing through the pages again. "Who here understands time loops and identity breakdowns?" She shrugs. "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." You wait. Then she says it. "The snake oil guy." You blink. "You mean that guy selling future vision powder and moonbeam tonic?" She nods. You stare. "Lydia, he was yelling about lizard kings and Martian telegraphs." "Yeah," she says, "and he might be the only one around here crazier than whatever you are. Let's go." You find him at the edge of town, near the ruins of an old windmill, surrounded by crates full of glass bottles that glow faintly green. He's wearing a stovepipe hat, wrapped in what looks like barbed wire, and his coat has so many buttons it jingles when he moves. He sees you and beams. Well, 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 the echo returns. You freeze. "What did you just call me?" He grins wider. "Echo." "That's what you are, but don't feel bad. Echoes sometimes ring louder than the shout." He's either a lunatic or exactly the lunatic you need. You show him the file. His hands tremble as he takes it. like it's something sacred. Pinkerton Tech, early generation, memory grafting. You weren't born, friend, you were deployed. You and Lydia exchange a look. Deployed for what? The man sits cross-legged and taps his forehead. To see what history hides, or as the higher-ups say, to test narrative interference. Drop an echo into a historical environment and see if they repeat the loop or change it. You sink down on a crate. So, I'm not even real. Oh, you're real, he says. You breathe, you choose, you hurt. That's real, just not original. But that's not a bad thing. Historians still argue whether early experiments with time manipulation in the late 1800s ever succeeded. Lydia says quietly. There were rumors of mind duplication and memory conditioning in intelligence agencies. Nothing ever proven. He nods. Because no one wants it proven. The moment you prove it, the whole timeline becomes guilty. You swallow. So what now? The snake oil man reaches into one of his crates and pulls out a small glass vial. Inside is a swirling silver mist. Drink this, he says. You'll remember more, or less, but clearer. You hesitate. Lydia grabs your hand. I'll be right here, she says. You nod. Pop the cork and drink. Suddenly, you're falling. Not physically, but inward. Your mind peels like layers of paint. You see flashes, other lives, other towns, a mission briefing, a laboratory with walls made of mirrors, a man in a suit saying, "You are Quaid 47B. Your task is to trace historical anomalies and eliminate irregularities. If you forget who you are, we have succeeded." Then you see something worse. You volunteered. They showed you the future, a broken world, and you said yes. They took your memories, told you you'd remember only if things started to spiral. They called it a fail-safe, and now it's triggering. When you open your eyes, Lydia's face is hovering over yours. She looks both scared and amazed. "You okay?" she whispers. You sit up slowly. The file is still there, but now you know where to go. There's an old radio tower on the ridge beyond the cemetery. It hasn't worked since the 1950s, but its foundations go deeper than anyone suspected. Deeper than history. You don't tell anyone where you're going except Lydia. She insists on coming. You hike at dawn. At the base of the tower, hidden under sand and weeds, is a steel hatch. It hisses when you open it. Rust flakes off in your hand. Last chance to turn back, you say. Lydia rolls her eyes. I stayed through the duel, the mine, and the glowing sundial. We're past turning back. Inside, the tunnel is narrow and steep. The air is colder here, metallic. You pass lights embedded in the walls. Some flicker. Some don't turn on at all. Eventually, you reach a chamber. Not stone, not dirt, metal and glass. And in the center, a chair. You know that chair. You've been in it before. You just didn't remember until now. There's a console, flickering with old text. A loading screen still blinking. On it, run Echo Reconciliation Protocol. You press yes. The chair hums as you sit. You expect pain, but instead it's calm, like sinking into warm water. A voice speaks, not aloud, but inside your skull. Echo 47B, recognition stabilized. Final memory pass initiated. You see everything. The lab, the researchers, the briefing, the decision. They told you that time is not a line. It's a field. And if they can plant agents into the right moments, they can understand how history wants to move. Not how it did move, You volunteered. Your mission was this town. Because something in it keeps changing. A fracture that won't heal. That's why there were two of you. And now, only one is left. When you emerge, hours later, Lydia is asleep on the floor of the corridor. You touch her shoulder. She stirs, blinks, then smiles. You okay? You nod. I know who I am now. And who's that? You look back at the open door of the chamber, someone who can choose. Back in town, people look at you differently. They don't know why. They just sense it. A few nod. One even tips his hat. You notice the saloon has reopened. The sign out front reads, "New name coming soon." Lydia walks beside you in silence. Then she says, "You know they're going to ask for answers." You smile. "Let 'em. I'll just make more questions." And that night, before you sleep, you hold the file one more time. But you don't open it. You just let it sit, a relic, because some truths are too big to fit in folders. And some stories are better lived than remembered. The town has changed. Not in the obvious ways. No banners, no parades, no crowd waiting to carry you on their shoulders. But you feel it in the way the wind drifts softer between buildings, how shutters don't slam shut when you pass, and how, for the first time since waking up in that cowboy outfit, no one is actively trying to shoot you in the face. Progress. Your boots crunch over the dirt as you and Lydia walk down the main street. People nod as you pass, some stiffly, others like they've just remembered your name and aren't sure if they still hate you. One old-timer even mutters, "Maybe he ain't the devil after all." It's the closest thing to an apology you've heard all week. You stop outside the general store, which now sports a chalkboard that reads, "Town meeting tonight. Bring your questions. Leave your pitchforks." You smirk. That's ominously encouraging. Lydia chuckles. They're trying. She's right. After everything, the fake robbery, the duel, the clockmaker's widow, the snake oil revelations, they're still trying to decide what to do with you. Trust doesn't come easy here, especially when a lot of folks think you're either a killer, a ghost, or a government science experiment, or all three. But at least they aren't drawing new wanted posters. That's what counts. Later that evening, the meeting happens in the old schoolhouse. People crowd the benches, hats in hand, boots tapping anxiously against floorboards. You sit at the front, Lydia beside you, and try to look like someone who didn't wake up a week ago with zero memories and a gun. The sheriff stands up first, tips his hat. "All right, folks, we all know why we're here. Some say the stranger saved this town. Others say he brought the danger with him. What we all want now is the same thing. Answers. All eyes turn to you. You rise slowly, clear your throat, and begin. You don't tell them everything. You can't. The snake oil man said as much. Too much truth can make a man unravel like old rope. So you tell them what they need to hear. That you didn't plan to be here. That you were part of something bigger and it went sideways. That someone else wore your face and made the town bleed. And that when it mattered, you chose to stay, to protect, to fix what could be fixed. You even tell them about the file, not the whole thing, just enough. A long time ago, you say, someone tried to make me into a story. But stories can go wrong. They get corrupted, lost, misremembered. I was sent to fix one. The room is quiet. Then one voice calls out, "So what's the story now?" You glance at Lydia, then back to the crowd. "That's up to all of us," you say. And for once, no one argues. The next morning, you wake to the sound of hammers. People rebuilding the livery, repairing bullet holes in saloon doors, painting over scorch marks from the dynamite blast. The town is healing. Lydia brings you coffee and a biscuit. Thought you'd earned a quiet breakfast. You sip. Feels unnatural. She grins. Let's not get used to it. And of course, you don't. Because quiet never lasts long out here. Around noon, a rider gallops in from the north, dust trailing like smoke. He stumbles off the horse, wild-eyed. "There's a fire at the freight yard," he shouts, "and someone just blew the bridge." People scatter. Shouts, boots, thudding. You're already moving, rifle in hand. Lydia follows. The fire is huge, black smoke curling into the sky like a signal flare to something worse. Crates burn, horses panic, and the bridge, once the only rail link out of town, is gone. Splinters where planks used to be. You find the cause easily enough. A bundle of dynamite with a strange symbol scorched into the casing. It's the same symbol from your file, the one on the cover page marked Anomaly 6. Someone else is here. Someone like you, or worse. Someone sent to erase you. Historians still argue whether post-Civil War America had hidden organizations working with experimental tech. You mutter. Lydia glances over. You're quoting again. Helps me stay calm. She raises her rifle. Try running instead. You track the saboteur into the hills. Fast runner. Left muddy boot prints and a blood smear. Likely from a blast that went off too soon. You catch up near sundown. He's hiding behind an outcrop of stone, nursing a wounded arm and muttering to himself. When he sees you, his eyes widen. "Quaid," he says. Your stomach drops. "You know me?" He nods. "I was your shadow, your redundancy." He says it like it's an honor or a curse. "They sent me when you didn't report in. Mission protocol, retrieve or replace. But then I saw what you were doing, living, not following, not obeying." He pauses, voice softer. "I wanted that too. So I burned the bridge." You stare at him. "You blew up our only way out because you didn't want to go back?" He grins almost apologetically. "Freedom, right?" You sigh. "We really are the same." And you sit beside him, watching the sun bleed across the valley. Two copies of a story that refuses to end the same way twice. You bring him back to town in the morning. Let the townsfolk decide. Surprisingly, they don't hang him. The sheriff shrugs. "Well, we did always need a second blacksmith." Lydia whispers, "This place is getting weird." You smile. "It was weird before we got here." That afternoon, someone paints over the last wanted poster. A kid watches you from the porch and asks, "You staying?" You nod. "Yeah, think I might." And for the first time since you woke up in that dusty street, dressed like a cowboy with a gun in your hand and a town full of enemies, you actually believe it. The saloon smells like fresh sawdust and bourbon-soaked regrets. You're leaning against the bar, sipping something warm that Lydia insists is coffee, even though it tastes like it once dated a campfire. Then the piano stops playing. The doors creak open. Boot steps on wood. Slow, deliberate, too heavy to belong to a man unsure of his mission. You don't need to turn around. You already know the stranger's here, and he's come for you. You sigh, set your cup down, and glance at Lydia. "Guess quiet time's over." She shrugs. "Didn't think it'd last." You turn. The man standing in the doorway is dressed in black with a silver star on his chest. Not a marshal's badge, but something older. notched, burned, a mark of something secret. His hat casts a long shadow across his face, but the outline of his jaw is unmistakably familiar because it's your jaw. And under that hat, your face. The room goes still. A spoon clinks in a teacup. Then nothing. He speaks first. Quaid, you blink. How do you know that name? He tilts his head. Because it's mine. Of course. He's the other you. The final version. The one they kept refining after you went off script. The cleaner, the end game. And he's here to shut it all down. Outside, the sun is just high enough for drama. The townspeople gather instinctively, like they've rehearsed this scene their whole lives. A duel, a reckoning, a high noon moment carved into the town's DNA. You step into the street. So does he. You size each other up. Same eyes, same scar above the eyebrow, same knuckles bruised from too many saloon brawls and not enough apologies. It's like looking at a reflection warped by ideology. He calls himself Quaid Prime. You almost laugh. Bit full of yourself, huh? He doesn't smile. I followed the mission. You got sentimental. You glance around. People watching. Lydia at the edge of the crowd, arms folded. I didn't get sentimental, you say. I got human. He adjusts his coat. Then you're unfit. He's not wrong, but that doesn't mean he's right. You draw first, but not your gun. You draw a memory. You remember the river crossing? When they sent us into that flooded town with a broken map and a busted compass? His eyes flicker. You remember we saved the child, even though it meant losing the objective? He doesn't answer. Because that was the moment, you say. That's when I knew this mission was never about the right thing, just the program thing. He draws his gun. You don't flinch. Instead, you lower yours. Gasps ripple through the crowd. I won't fight you, you say. He hesitates. Then you die, he says. You nod. Maybe, but not by my hand. Not today. He steps forward. Close enough that you see the micro scars on his temple, where the implants once were. Close enough that he could shoot without missing. But he doesn't. Because something flickers behind his eyes, something unstable, something uncertain. For the first time, he questions the mission. And in that crack, you drive a wedge. You move fast, not to draw your gun, but to throw him off balance. A feint to the left, a shoulder to the chest. He stumbles, but doesn't fall. Instead, he grabs you, slams you into a hitching post and snarls, "You don't understand. This town was never real. None of this matters." You grin through the pain. Funny. Feels real enough. The fight's brutal. Two versions of the same man, with the same training, same instincts, same stubborn refusal to quit. You trade blows in the dust, under the heat, surrounded by people too afraid to breathe, until Lydia steps in. She throws a boot at Quaid Prime's head. It hits. He staggers. You land the final punch. He falls, and the town exhales. They drag him to the jailhouse, not in chains, but not gently either. The sheriff locks the door, looks at you and says, "What now?" You shrug. No idea. Later that night, Lydia brings you a bottle and 2 glasses. You sit on the porch, watching stars blink awake above the rooftops. "I thought you'd shoot him," she says. "I thought so too, but you didn't." "Nope." "Why?" You pour a drink. Because maybe the point isn't winning the fight. Maybe it's refusing to become the thing you're fighting. She raises her glass. "That sounds like something you'll regret tomorrow." You clink glasses anyway. At midnight, the jailhouse explodes. No one's hurt. But Quade Prime is gone, left behind a note scorched around the edges. You're not the only version learning how to choose. You stare at it for a long time, then fold it carefully and slide it into your pocket. The town sleeps again, but you stay awake, watching the horizon, because this isn't over. Not yet. You don't sleep that night, not because you're afraid, though maybe a little, but because sleep feels too final, like a door you're not ready to close yet. Instead, you walk the streets. Your streets now, the dusty town that hated you, then feared you, and now tolerates you. Its progress. The saloon's closed. The sheriff snores in his rocking chair. Somewhere, a cat yowls like it knows things it shouldn't. You stop in front of the clock tower. The big hand ticks with deliberate effort, like it's hauling time uphill. Funny thing, it's always just a little wrong, no matter how many times they fix it. You know the feeling. At sunrise, you head to the jail. Ashes, still warm. Whoever helped Quade Prime escape knew what they were doing. No tracks, no witnesses, just a trail of wrongness curling off into the horizon. Lydia meets you there, holding 2 cups of strong coffee and a face that says, "I told you so," without even trying. "You think he's gone for good?" she asks. You take the coffee, sip, wince. Nope, and you're right, because by noon, he's left you a gift. A letter arrives. No horse, no rider, just a folded envelope on your windowsill, sealed with a thumbprint made of something metallic. Inside is a page torn from your file, real name still redacted, but the header reads, Quade X Sauce Protocol Override. Beneath it, a list. Subject, unstable. Emotional contamination detected. Mission breach pending. Authorize reset option. Code, Genesis. You show it to Lydia. She frowned. So, they're not sending someone else to clean you up? You shake your head. Worse, they're sending the whole reset. Meaning they're going to erase the town. She blinks. Like, destroy it? No, worse than that. Because if they follow Protocol Genesis, they won't just level buildings or silence witnesses. They'll rewrite it, all of it, like it never existed. You gather the town that night. Everyone's tired, sunburned, and half certain you're crazy again. But they listen, maybe because they remember the fire, or the dynamite, or the man with your face who tried to kill you. Hard to ignore that kind of drama. You tell them what's coming. A reset, not bombs, not bullets, memory, time, reality. They want to stitch over this place like it was a bad dream. The blacksmith scoffs. You saying they've got magic? No, you reply. Worse, science. And then, because you're you add. You know, historians still argue whether secret government labs during the Reconstruction era had access to memory alteration technology. Some say it's fringe theory. Others say it's just buried deeper than we're allowed to dig. Blank stares. Lydia leans in. They're not podcast people. Right. They don't believe you. Not fully. But they believe enough. The sheriff steps up. So what do? You glance around. Then at the file. Then at the clock tower. Ticking ever slightly wrong. We mess up the timeline. And that's how the plan starts. You split the town into crews. Not to fight, but to preserve. To entangle. Anything they can't cleanly delete becomes a liability, you explain. So we make ourselves hard to erase. They bury family heirlooms in new places. paint murals where no murals should be, rewire the town's power grid to run off water wheels and the occasional lightning strike. One kid builds a homemade radio tower out of scrap and stubbornness. You take your file and copy it by hand, pages pinned across every public surface. If they erase this town, you say, they erase every proof of this operation. It's desperate, it's messy, it's very human. And maybe that's the point. The night before the reset's scheduled to hit, Lydia finds you on the saloon roof, watching the stars blink like signals you can't quite decode. You ready? She asks. No. Want to be? Also no. She nods. Good. Means you're still sane. You share a drink. She leans her head on your shoulder. Think it'll work, she whispers. You don't answer, but you wrap your arm around her just in case the stars fall early. At midnight, the sky pulses. Not thunder, not lightning. Something deeper, like the world's breath caught for a moment. Then a flicker, a hiccup in gravity. The town holds its breath. You feel it in your bones, a tremor of code beneath your blood. A tug, soft but firm, like a hand trying to pull you backward through a door you already locked. And then you resist, not with strength, but with choice. You think of Lydia, the boy who built the radio, the mural on the post office wall of a man in a cowboy hat offering his gun to a little girl. You think of stories, and how sometimes the only way to keep them alive is to live them too stubbornly to forget. The pulse fades, the stars stop twitching, the night exhales, and the town, still here, still dusty, still weird, still real. Lydia touches your hand. It didn't work, she says. You shake your head. It did, and that's when you know you're not just surviving the story. You're writing it now. The next morning feels quieter. Not the tense silence of something about to go wrong, but the kind that follows a choice made. Final, maybe, but freeing. The sun crests over the rooftops, brushing gold against the cracked wood and rusted signage. The town still smells like horses, coffee, and ambition. Normal, real as it's ever been. You open your eyes and half expect everything to be gone. But the mural's still there. The coffee still tastes like regret, and Lydia's still snoring under her hat. Boots kicked up on the railing next to yours. You survived the reset, or maybe you broke it. Word spreads fast, though you're not sure who's telling it. Seems like everyone's suddenly a little more alert. The bartender starts polishing glasses like a man expecting company. The sheriff actually dusts off his badge. Even the preacher nods at you like he might finally stop pretending you're the devil's twin. People change when they think the end won't come for them, or maybe when they know it already tried and failed. A few days later, a rider comes through. Not one of yours, not a familiar face, but not hostile either. She's tall, wiry, with a bandolier of strange-looking shells and a rifle carved with symbols you've never seen before. Not Western, not even modern. She calls herself Elias. Says she's from another town like yours, one that didn't survive the reset, or at least, not all of it. They erased our saloon, she says, over a cracked glass of something clear and biting. But the bartender's memory grew back. Messy. Took weeks. He still thinks he's part dog, but at least he makes good whiskey. You raise an eyebrow. Why come here? She sets a small box on the table. Because You're the only anomaly that survived with full continuity. Inside the box, a chip, burned, glitched, still pulsing. It's your mission file, she says, or at least your last update. The prime directive, stripped raw. You glance at Lydia, who shrugs. You want answers? This might be the final piece. You plug it into the saloon's busted player, the one that never works unless the moon's crooked and someone spilled a drink nearby. It sparks to life, and a voice begins to play. It's you, but older, or maybe just tired. The voice says, if you're hearing this, it means I lost the vote. The reset is coming or already came, and you're the backup, not a clone, not a copy, a wild card. You were never supposed to be sentient, just reactive. But something happened, a choice, a moment, and you veered off script. Good, that's what I hoped for. The program started as a simulation to test decisions, ethics, human behavior under stress. Cowboy settings were just for flavor. Turns out, nostalgia sells. But the code, it evolved. We made gods, and then gave them 6 shooters. The prime version of you, he's a fail-safe, trained to fix narrative drift, erase you if needed, but I locked a key deep in your code, the thing that makes you different. Emotion, memory, regret. They tried to wipe you, but you remembered how it felt. So, listen closely. If the system's still watching, and it always is, then what you do next will determine everything. Be a story worth keeping. And then the tape fries itself. Smoke curls out of the slot. The saloon goes still. You look around the room. No one says anything. Then Lydia says, so, you're a failed god. You nod. Something like that. She grins. Weird. I liked you better as a weird cowboy. Same hat, either way. Outside, a wind kicks up, hot, sharp, and full of dust. You squint toward the horizon. New riders. Dust on the move. Maybe enemies? Maybe pilgrims? Maybe just more echoes of some other narrative looking for an ending. But you're not scared, because now you're not reacting. You're choosing. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes this town bulletproof. Not the walls, not the code, but the will to remember. The dust has settled, and the stars rise again over a town that shouldn't have made it through the night. You're still sitting on that porch, still watching the wind flirt with the lantern strung along the eaves. Lydia's beside you, quieter now. Her hat's tilted just enough to suggest she might be half asleep or halfway to dreaming. Somewhere, a harmonica hums a lonely tune. Not sad, exactly, just slow enough to hush the mind. You stretch your legs, feel the creak in your knees, the weight in your shoulders. Not the kind that hurts, the kind that reminds you you've lived through something. Something that tried to unright you, but didn't. And the town? Still here. Still a little broken. Still trying. And maybe that's all you can ask for. You take one last look at the stars. They don't blink like code anymore. They're just stars. Quiet. Ancient. Comforting. Like they've seen this all before. And still come back every night. You close your eyes. The chair rocks gently. The fan hums soft in the background. And in this moment, with the wind soft against your skin and the past curling away behind you like an old page in a warm book, you finally let go. Because the story doesn't end here. It just rests. Good night, cowboy.